Hello everyone, let's see if this is working, shall we? Hello, Ryan. Oh, good lord. I haven't put the list of books up yet, but that's because, to be honest, I have been doing lots of stuff to do with getting lunch, but also with the Battle of Cape Passaro, because it's a pretty interesting little battle. And it happened exactly 302 years ago on Tuesday, so it's rather appropriate to do it that day. All right, then, let's see. We've got Fred. Hi, Jay Richardson. Hi, Carl. Hi, King's Rook. Hi, Calvin Gasberg. Hi, Jay. Hi, Brock. Thank you for being here to do the admin stuff. Hi, John Shea. Hi, Jay. I think we're good evening from a very hot Gillingham to all. Well, yeah, good luck. It seems to be hot everywhere at the moment. I'm slowly melting. Now, this was close. Just woke up 20 minutes before this. Why is my alarm not working? Oh, that's annoying. Okay. Hi, Cargan. Hello from the land of frites, beers, and chocolate. I'm glad you're enjoying Belgium. The fact that you're not sharing the chocolate is a bit cruel. Stephanie Wilson. YouTube only alerts a set number of people. As Dr. Clark is now more popular than that, most of us do not get an alert. That just seems cruel. I didn't realize they do that. At the moment, I seem to be hovering around the 4,270 subscribers mark and have done for about most of the last month. I'm not quite sure why, but that's where I seem to be sort of pottling along, and it's okay. I wouldn't mind of making to the 5,000 mark, but you know, we can't all get our dreams. No, it's more a case of why is it stopped though? Why is it sort of peaked and hovering there? And what am I not doing well enough that's getting it higher? So what the question's going through my mind? Not that I expected to be making Drac level or anything like that. It's just stopped at 4,270, which just seems like a weird number to stop at. Right then. Okay. Not seeing the book list in the description though. Ghost of Dread Pirate Ross. Evening, everyone. Glorious summer day in my part of the UK. That's lovely. Hello. Right, an afternoon. Stafford Thompson. Hello, Eric. Hello, Gordon Collins. Hello, Blue Shirt Buddha. As you can see, I'm still wearing my lovely t-shirt. No dislike now. There's dislike. Right then. Hopefully, I'm not sure if this mucks around with it at all or anything, but I do have some book lists, so I'm going to add in book one. And the book one today is going to be The Gurkhas by John Parker. So hopefully that has appeared in the bottom of the list. It's a trick which someone showed me and they said apparently it works, so we will hope it works. But this is the book I'm talking about, The Gurkhas by John Parker. It's a pretty cool little book. It's the inside story of the world's most feared soldiers, and I know we're doing Special Forces today, but frankly, I think the Gurkhas straddle the line of Special Forces. It has some very nice pictures, which are well annotated. And it shows them both as they are at home and as they are on operations, you know, the Gurkhas in the round sort of thing, which is nice. It doesn't just treat them as one thing. It is a very nice little book. Hello to Plebiscite. Let's see. So Thompson, 1 second, Doctor. I'm going to share this to my Facebook if that's okay. Michael will say and join us. Well, I'd be glad if they do. Anyone who joins is always more than welcome. I have plenty of Iron Brew. and plenty to chat about. I have 11 books sitting here today. I have been looking for 12, but I can't find one of my books, which I have about 3 different copies of, and normally is falling out of me from everywhere because people are always buying me copies of it, and I haven't been able to find it today, which is really, really freaking weird. I'll find it. But it's an interesting book, this one. As is... Oh, I've already been through that one. Ooh. Good. So how are we all doing today? How's everything going? Apart from being hot, which, as you can see, I definitely am. This shirt is actually surprisingly cool. I was worried it was going to be quite hot because it seems to come from an exercise company, but, you know, it's fairly cool, fairly viable. Thank you, Doug. Gotta go. I want to say thanks for doing it. Thank you, Doug, and thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you. I was able to find my long lost copy of the Compendium of Collective Nouns when it fell off the shelf. That is always a good time. Books do sometimes fall that you can go, hello, we're here. The actual book I'm looking for is my book, which is all about the operation to take out the dock in France, the Saint-Nazaire raid. It's amazing how many operations are in places which have N's in their name. Because I always get... Sometimes I stay the St. Narvik raid, and then I go, oh, good lord. That was silly of me. Yeah. I have to say, our treatment of the Gurkhas has improved over recent years. And it has got better, and there is one of the books I was looking for. And this will actually do for number 2 book. Martin Dark, slumming again with plastic bottles of iron brew. Yes, you can think that, but you can also think that that means there's 2 litres of iron brew rather than 750 mils of iron brew, which means it lasts longer for Bru Ships. We have now finally got under, I think, the pension, a decent pension, which is quite good for the Gurkhas. And it's a really good book. It is one of the better ones. There are so many books about the Gurkhas which are, how do I put this? They're just concerned with the one dimension of their fighting. They do this in combat, and they're this. Brilliant soldiers, fearless soldiers, You can basically write the book without ever reading it. But this one is good because it has the content in it. It's even got some stuff right up to date with the Falklands War stuff, and that was some great information, psychological warfare going on there. Jubilant men of the 1st Battalion, 7th Duke of Edinburgh's own Gurkha rifles capture an Argentinian aircraft gun. Yep. Admiral Tiberius, thank you. In Mac, how probable is the idea of an American-made French frigate raider? Frigates in carrying during the Quasi-War, an American wasn't under blockade at the time. The thing is, the French didn't. it's going to sound strange. The Americans would have quite happily provided, if the Americans were able to build it, the Americans would have quite happily done it themselves. For the raider, for the frigate raider, you wouldn't need a French frigate raider to go from America. If they'd wanted to buy American ships, that's always an option, but you have to get the crew across there to use them, whereas it's far easier to just, how do I put it, send money. And even not send money, just send agreements, and the Americans will do it for you. It's the case of, it's a classic scenario of, there is a lovely idea, it's a lovely possibility, but in practice, it's a very complicated to do, and it's far easier just to get the Americans to do it yourself. If necessary, if they want to, the Americans can fly the French flag. You can always give them that permission. For goodness sake, privateering goes back a long, long way in terms of surface radar and these sort of options. So, you know, it's fun times. In map. But, you know, so using an American-made ship as your surface radar, I can see that. If you find one that's suitable, I can see the point of getting the Americans to be the surface radar for you. An American ship with a French, getting a French crew across to America to launch it would seem rather absurd and expensive and risky for when you can do it far easier, far cheaper, and far more sensible. Plebiscite, a surprise considering how we've treated them, and I think I'm always surprised when the First Nations still support Canada, given all we've put them through. Considering their other options were America and Russia, you can potentially understand their reasoning for being quite so pro-Canada. And now, force of habit. Hi, Daniel. Don't worry. Hello, Samuel. How are we doing, lads? I think everyone's doing okay. Hopefully, everyone seems to be very hot. I think that's probably the next thing I've got to do to my room if I'm going to keep doing all this work in here is probably replace that ceiling light with a ceiling fan of some kind. Daniel Freeman, it took the Americans ages to build their ships, didn't it? The lag between orders from France and a regime change in France and getting a crew out of it, France would be challenging. Yep, it would have been. It would have been really, really interesting. Dr. Clark, if you were to win a major lotto, how would one go about becoming a privateer today? Well, you would find a suitable country to build you a decent-sized vessel. Then you would have to find probably another country where you could fit it out with the suitable arms. Because if you wanted a well-built ship, you'd probably want to build it in the West. If you wanted to arm it and have all the latest technology and stuff that you could use, you want to build it in the West. There's some sort of research vessel / personal yacht, maybe. And then you would go and get suitable weaponry added onto it. The key thing would be to build in the subdivision, sort of we're talking warship level subdivision, and internal stuff to give the hull and give it the ship more survivability. And mainly you're using that because you want to have as strong a passive defense as possible, because your whole point is you're going to be probably doing ambush ambushing. So you'll want to be able to hold your fire to the last possible moment. And I'd probably have it fitted out with things which were good for anti-merchant ship. I wouldn't need really warship anti-capabilities. Missiles aren't really that useful for privateering because I want to be able to board the ship and see if there's any money in there, which means I need rapid-fire autocannon, which are also the easiest ones to hide. So I would probably be ripping the armament idea off the Type 31, but I'd probably be having 57mm or 2 forward and some 40mm, and that would be sort of my sort of starter, that weaponry. And I do play the Euro Millions, so if I get the chance, I might well fit out a privateer. I also might build a tribal class destroyer, but you know, that's if I won several hundred million. Good luck, Jack. Good luck. That's all I can say. Cold water baths. Blockbrain. In the original O'Brien book, the frigate in question was USS Honestly, I'm Not the Essex, and it ran aground rather than getting in a fight with Surprise. That wouldn't surprise me. The Piper's like, sometimes I believe it's now illegal under international law agreements. Okay, so privateering illegal. Yes and no. In that, all nations are allowed to hire mercenaries. So as long as you are taking part in what is a declared war, flying the flag of the nation you are serving, you are a mercenary, so therefore it's legal. And also, you always have to remember when you're dealing with international law, as we were discussing a couple of weeks ago, the Royal Navy and the various naval treaties, they signed actual pieces of paper which said they wouldn't automatically procure ships which were in their yards under construction for other navies. They did it. Not just once, but 2 whole class of destroyers. Possibly 3. They were supposed to do all sorts of things. They didn't. And believe it or not, Britain's considered the one which was the law-abiding of the nations. I don't think anyone would object to an American-built ship in the era of 1895 and 1815 as being something not of adequate quality. They were always usually good quality ships. They just weren't massive. Jefferson, in Mac, the enemy frigate was built as a whaler and is not part of the French Navy. It flew a French flag, but was a privateer. Yep. Hi, Bandhome. Hi, Keeler 19. Danny Freeman, yes, certain nations undertook to no longer employ privateers against other nations. However, again, piece of paper is only it's only worth as much as you're willing to make it pay for it. Jefferson, has anyone seen T-31 design? God, that design looks shit. The bow is too short and it's not actually. It's fairly good design. It's designed as a very highly mobile ship and a ship which can dock itself in pretty much any port, which is one of the strengths for it as an argument. So it could go and visit places which really don't get a lot of attention normally and do quite a good job. So that's part of the reasons why the Type 31's been selected as it has. Jeff Elam, modern privateers could provide onboard security for anti-piracy protection. They never come ashore to stay illegal. Yep. I have a friend who actually works and coordinates that sort of thing. The Liger, no 30. 76mm Strails. You get a explosive weapon as well as an excellent medium gun. You don't get many rounds of ammunition. That's the thing compared to 57mm or 40mm. So whilst yes, but no. So Thompson, a tribal could be a good privateer, or oh look, museum, oh one that works, oh damn. Yes, I was thinking of building her and calling her HMS Celt or HMS Cornishman, either of which would be quite well. Would work quite well. Martin Duck, direction. Yeah, sort of should design the other day. Definitely some more weaponry. Why? I don't get me wrong. I'd actually, broadly speaking, would agree. But the thing is, for a general purpose frigate, which is going to be around for 20, 30 years, I'm actually preferring her to be built with space in her design and be built chock full. Because if you build her chock full, you have to take out a lot of stuff before you can add it in. Whereas if you leave her with space in the design, you can modify and add things in far more easier as time goes on. And we're at the moment, we all know technology is changing. We all know new technology is coming in. We all know the Royal Navy is going to be changing its surface missile at some point. It's going to be changing all sorts of things. I'd actually prefer, if you fill up the design too much at the moment, I'd be worried about it later down the road. It's it's the Queen Elizabeth class battleship versus the R class. The R class are chock full of stuff. And so they look far more proportionally armed if your idea is to chuck your warship full of weapons than the Queen Elizabeth class. But the Queen Elizabeth class are far easier to upgrade and therefore are far more useful in World War II than the R class. So it's similar to Type 31s. Samuel, when has international law stopped anyone? There was a period of time when the strongly worded note had a big impact, but now it doesn't. It really sadly doesn't. So, next book. High Night Ham Production. Jerition, don't call them mercenaries, call them contractors. Yes, I will call them contractors. I call them many other things as well. So, I thought the difference between privateer and pirate was the former had a license from some government. Bingo. They do, which is what makes them so much, makes it so nicer. And as I was talking about during the Battle of the Armada campaign and the Battle of Gravelines, 12 of the galleon-sized vessels in the Royal Navy at this time had been built as privateers. The other ones officially hadn't been built as privateers, were heavily armed. So there were 30 ships amongst the fleet, which were very heavily armed Royal Navy race galleon-sized, shaped, and organized vessels. But technically, only 12 had been built as privateers. Daniel Phillips, have you ever been to the Barrow Historic Dock Museum to see Congo shipbuilder's model, or the Harrison Preston to see the model built upon the Victoria's sister ship when she was scrapped? No, I might have been when I was younger with my dad, but I can't remember. I don't think so. Anyway, book number 2. John Laffin, Raiders. And this is a cool one because it has all sorts of things. Its chapter titles are this. Special Air Service, Long Range Desert Group, Glider-borne Raiders, Buccaneers of the SBS, Commandos in the Arctic, Combined Operations Pilotage Parties, Tudor Brook Raids, Rommel Raid, Great Raid on St. Nazaire, Brunvel Camper, Pinprick Raids on the French coast, Pacific Raiders, Cockleshell Heroes, Dieppe, Singapore Raids, Australian Raiders, Italian Underwater Raiders, Mussolini Snatch, and the Raid on Amiens Prison. It is a wonderful collection of Second World War operations, and it's really not that expensive. From my memory, it cost me about £10. So I can't imagine it cost that much more on Amazon. It's a really nice book. It has a lot of really interesting stuff in. It has a lot of really quite cool pictures in, which is always good. And it's written in a nice style and everything. It's what I would call a very good overview introduction book. Everything has enough detail to get you interested in a specific raid, but it's not going to spoil you for going and doing further research. So it's a really nice book to start off with. Can we come and ooh. Jerison, I don't think the death penalty was repealed for piracy here in the UK. We don't really have the death penalty anymore, but theoretically it's possibly still there. Plebiscite, can we come and crew your tribal when the book millions come in? I mean, books make millions, don't they? We can always dream they do. Maybe in fiction. Jerison, it has for sabotage and military facilities, murder, desertion, can't find anything on piracy. Yeah. Daniel Freeman, but there is no such so much difference between a privateer and armed merchant cruiser. Honest, yeah, that's the point. Okay. Daniel Freeman, a town-class cruiser would make an excellent commerce raider. Sorry, not counter-commerce raider. Anyone know how to get Belfast engines up and running again? Actually, my dad might have looked into a study of that during the Falklands War. Jermac, hey, historical tribes of British Isles would be nice names for our RN class. HMS Celt, HMS Pict, HMS Saxon, HMS Iceni. HMS Celt would be a lovely with the Atlantic blue war paint. HMS Cornishman would be one running crew, not sure how sneaky it'd be. Let's be honest, if it's called HMS Cornishman, it's not stopping for anything. Stephen Wilson, the strongly worded note works when they know there is a big stick to back it up. This has been my point for a long time. And it's why whenever someone tells me that what we need to do to bring peace in the world is to disarm, is I look at them and I go, okay, show me where that has worked. Jerison, here we go. Latvia only abolished execution in 2012. Joined the EU in 2004. Then we could also have the new tribals of Britain. HMS Scalcer, HMS Gordy, possibly scarier than HMG Gurkha. HMS Gurkha. HMS Scalcer. HMS Geordie Shore could be scarier. HMS Chelsea would frankly just keep buying stuff. Jeff Beer, other than the Falklands, what amphibious operations have Gurkhas taken part in? I think there were a fair number of them around for D-Day. They did all sorts of things off the coast of Burma in World War II. Quite a lot of the Indian war operations, which involved amphibious operations during the conquest of India, they were around for. They've done a fair amount in their time. Nothing too massive, but they're an army unit, technically. Kingsrook, the characters worked for so long we've forgotten the stickers sometimes needed. Yeah. Jeff here, the HMS Scarve, HMS Hovian, HMS Trekker, HMS Jedi. Ooh. HMS Jedi could be cool. Constantly playing mind games with the enemy. HMS Trowbridge. Goes to Deborah's. Aaron Tiberius. Opinion on the US selecting the Frem class the next frigate, and thoughts of using South Korean Navy super burglars as a basis for the TCO replacement, or too many eggs in one basket. I think if you just want to go for a super Burke, you might as well go for the South Korean. The what's it called? The Sanjung the Great or something. They are absolutely amazing. They are in actually the next episode of Bilge Pumps, the small navies one. We're talking about them. I think they were Drax's favorite. Picking the Frem class of the frigate, next frigate. The American requirement for next generation frigate was basically no risk. It must be an adequate anti-submarine warfare vessel, and it must have no risk, and must be in service. That's why we're saying no risk, because we are literally going for it's already in service, so we know all the problems with it, so we can just build it straight away. That's their plan. So that's why they've gone for Frem. If they had been emphasizing anti-submarine warfare rather than risk, they'd have probably ended up with the Type 26, because the only problem with the Type 26 is it's not in the water. But that would have been kind of interesting. As it is, they've gone for a Frem, which I think will probably keep them going until they work out what they want to build themselves. My father undertook a study into the glider assault regiments, found they're cheaper and more successful than paratroopers and helicopter assault forces. That won't surprise me. The whole point about helicopters and paratroopers is paratroopers tend to be longer range than glider assault ones, and helicopter ones tend to be you can be more accurate where you drop them. That's their advantages. One's ease of use, one is and reuse, and the other one is range. I don't see how Anglo-Saxon can be racist inaccurate, but not necessarily racist. Caucasian comes from a racist concept root. What's going on here? I have no idea. So Thompson, fast attack small corvette with anti-ship missiles. If that was HMS Pick, that'd be scary. Read the HMS Belfast engines. Don't you have a horde of engineering students who need to pass your class on history? Yeah, but honestly, I'd only trust the mechanical engineers. Maybe the aeros, not the civils. The civils want to pour concrete into everything. Basically, I swear a civil engineer's response to most things is, concrete is the answer. Now, what was the question? No, I love my civil engineering students, and I can understand why they are as fixated on concrete as they are, because most of the students I teach are in the first and second year, and by the time they get to the final year, the stations I'm looking at, usually I get the ones who are slightly more historically inclined being sent in my direction, and they're usually talking about Roman method concrete, because they're all looking at Roman concrete now because they want to work out how to set concrete underwater. And the Romans were absolutely amazing at setting concrete underwater, and we are proving they're worrying about our concrete underwater. So everyone's now looking at Romans. Jerison, might a privateer or pirate be considered an illegal combat? No protection, laws of war, and executed on site. Not as long as they're flying the flag of the country they're representing. Then they'd be fine. King's Rook. Circling back to the long-ago reference to HMS Come On If You Think Hard Enough, aka HMS Gurkha, what was the USN version again, and what would the RCN version be? Well, to be honest, now you've asked me a question, I've completely forgotten the name of the USN destroyer I was talking about. Let's see, which one was it? USS Johnston is probably the equivalent, because let's be honest, that's basically what she does. And HMCS Hyder. Come on, it's the fighting a ship in the Canadian Navy. It can only be Hyder. But so that's 2 tribals to 1. I don't know again what Johnson was. She was a Fletcher class, so yeah. But you really don't want to fight any of those 3 ships. They're not going to take prisoners on a nice day. On a bad day, they're not just going to leave survivors. I do think this shirt is rather cool. I'm rather keen on this one. They do more as well. You can get a Nelson one and all sorts of things from the makers. And I am, well, now I've liked this shirt, I might well go back and look at them. And there's a one which is a knight in armor and all sorts of things. Nictasia, is that the same John Laffin as the British Butcher's Act of World War One? I'm not sure. Let's list his previous books. No, it doesn't list his previous books. Also by John Laffin. Yes, it is. British campaign medals. Australian Army at War, 1899 to 1974. Brassey's battles, 3,000 years of conflict. It's all sorts of things. Brassey's Book of Espionage, yeah. Women in Battle, Anzacs at War, Links of Leadership, 30 Centuries of Command. It's quite a cool book. It's a good book, and it's well written. I like it. Right. Kingsrook. The Parliamentary Budget Officer looking at the RCN purchase of the Type 26. Yep, politics. Yeah, that was always going to happen. In the nicest way, the cost of building... The trouble is, and the question is, are they going to compare the cost to building in Canada versus building in another country? And the thing is, the cost of building in Canada means you have to recreate the industry. It's what the British have found. It's why the British have been so keen to keep construction going after the aircraft carriers. It's why we straight away had the OPVs and now got the Type 26s and going to Type 31s, because it's actually cheaper to build the stuff when you've already got the industry going. Getting the industry up and going, building your ships, and then letting the industry deteriorate, and then having to do it again is very expensive. King George V. Did you hear about the modernization of 4 Type 45s? But I hope you're all doing well. We're doing fine. They've got through 4 of the 6 Type 45s. They're slowly getting through all 6. Slowly. They've left the most difficult 2 for last. HMS Daring being one of them. Basically, I guessed which 2 they were going to leave for last, because they're the 2 which... this is going to sound very egotistical. I know some changes were made in the Type 45 design at one point, and believe it or not, the ones after that design, for that change, a lot easier to modernize somehow. The new ones the other ones are going to have that design change rebuilt into them, and are then going to have to be modernized, so it's going to be more expensive. Jerison, isn't your sister teaching civil engineering, have a PhD in civil engineering? Yes, she does. In fact, my sister is a PhD in civil engineering and geotechnics. She's one of the best in her field. She's Dr. Karen Clark. You can find her on the Kingston University website, actually. And she's head of the foundation year, combined foundation year for all the engineering students, because she's got a CEng, and she's such a good engineer. She's in charge of all the foundation students. She does really well. She's a really good engineer. Daniel Freeman, read your civil engineering students. They can build the stone frigates. We can use others to get the ship working. Yes, that probably will be what I'm using for. Stephen Wilson. Hi, King George V. Well, hi, King George V, if I've missed that as well. Daniel Freeman, re-Roman Cornwall. Didn't the Romans use some sort of volcanic rock? Bingo. And now we've found it, we're now trying to regenerate the exact mixture of that volcanic rock, which mostly occurred underneath Rome, artificially. And I actually know 2 of the researchers at Kingston who are working on that. They're doing some very interesting stuff. Plebiscite. Isn't the thing with concrete not that we can't do it, it's that it's really expensive. Bingo. But the Romans managed to do it quite cheaply and efficiently. So the question is how they do it and get better quality. And that's the other trouble. For us to make concrete which lasts long enough underwater, it's quite complicated. It's quite expensive. Jefferson, God, don't talk to me about concrete. I love a good Vendee C45 mixed with a good amount. Ooh, yeah. It's always nice to have a good mix of concrete. And Thomas, I see the Basset Hound decoration in the background. That is fantastic. That is a Father's Day card I got from our previous poodle. Yeah. So I keep it. It's like I keep one of his fluffy toys because I'm a sentimental old fool. Right. Danny Phillips, we need HMS Optimus Prime for a Type 31. After all, the Army have Megatron. That'd be scary. Kingdra, I meant the cultural equivalent of the phrase to the phrase "Come on if you're hard enough for the USN RCN." I figured the RCN will include the word "sorry" because of Canada. I'm not sure what the cultural phrase for the Americans to "come on if you think you're hard enough" will be. Probably. Calabunga? I'm not sure on that one. For the Canadians, it would be. Sorry. Canadians, it'd probably be. Are you sure? Or I perceive a course of events likely to resort to violence. I would prefer, for your sake, not to. Admiral Tiberius, look at the F-22 production. They shut down the factory, and it's been a major boondoggle to get parts. Pretty much, if you'd wanted to keep things sensible, you'd have kept ordering about. Well, I'd have said if you kept ordering 12 Type 20 F-22s a year to keep the factory open and keep the parts running properly, you'd have had one entering the Air Force a month, and you could have slowly upgraded them, kept them far more relevant. German, keeping industry alive. Well, look at who is able to build tanks here now. It's shrunk to almost to just Germany. Pretty much, yeah. The interesting thing is APCs, and honestly, if you're going to get a mass production of any vehicle in any future war, it's probably going to be 8x8s. Maybe some IFV infantry fighting vehicles, but probably not tanks. Unless those tanks are unmanned and much smaller. Sam Thompson. So if you and your sister arrange a trip to HMS Belfast and HMS MCS Hyder, how concerned should the world be? I took all the engineering students down to see Portsmouth Harbour, HMS Victory, and HMS Warrior, and they survived fine. I only had to pull 3 students out of the rigging on HMS Warrior. It's quite good. When I took War Study students down there, I had to pull about 6 out of the rigging. Yep, that'd be my sister. I always love the way she sort of minimizes what she's doing. She's basically saving the Isle of Wight and various other things from sinking into the sea. Yeah, my sister is very, very brainy. King's Rock, do you feel lucky, Punk? Maybe that could well be the American one or the Canadian ones. Make my day. Surely the US threat saving. It could be. It's sure. Okay. Brock Prain. Americans say, "Come on if you think you're hard enough." Although King's Rook also has this one. That's what the Brits say quite a lot. Come on if you think you're hard enough. You really want to? Come on. Take care, Brock. Stuart Carr, the Parker report on shipbuilding has disappeared off the political radar completely, even though most of the issues it raised haven't gone away at all. Welcome to modern politics. It's going to disappear. I'm Torres. Dr. Clark, why is the US Navy's naming scheme so trash? The 4-class... Look, the US Navy has gone to full political naming. In their mind, it doesn't matter what they call the ship as long as they get it built. And actually, there are some good things they've done. There are some good vessels which have been named and built. So, I think there are some getting some good names through. Jefferson, UK still has a factory overhaul of Challenger 2s there, so 227. The rest are stored or in for factory rebuild. Strange enough, they seem to do a lot of T-55s as well. Yeah. T-55 is very popular to get upgraded. Seems to be lasting the test of time. Ghost of Dread Pirate Roberts. Pray tell, Doctor, what were they doing in the rigging? I have no idea. They thought they could climb up it. And then at least 2 of them got scared and stuck. Jay Richardson, that is very, very sad that you haven't been to Portsmouth Historic Dockyard. It's one of the great places to go in the country. Jack Hunter, HMS Warrior is actually really cool to visit. HMS Victory is horrible if you are are over 5'7". I'd say HMS Victory is painful to visit if you're over 5'6", considering I've seen 5'6" people bash their heads. And if you are like me, who is just about 6 foot, depending on what shoes I'm wearing, whether I'm exactly 6 foot or just below, I'm technically 5'11.5" or something like that. Yeah, if I'm wearing my safety shoes, I am 6 foot. And I have to wear my safety shoes when I take my engineering students out, because we're all supposed to be in our safety shoes with steel toe caps and everything, which is great fun for walking around on shipping. And, yeah. Basically, Warrior is designed to kill you at that point. Well, no, Victory is designed to kill you. Warrior is still not that great either. But you can survive. All right, then. Let's go to this. Bum, 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 bum. And live hit. And let's see. Book 3. What should we do for book 3? Oh, this one. We're going to go completely Kish. Right then. So, we're going completely... And I hope you're noticing that the books are sort of appearing below. Well, they should be. As we get to them. So this one, next one is SAS, The Ultimate Guide to Combat, How to Fight and Survive in Modern Warfare by Robert Stirling. Actually starts off with the introduction is, why do you need this book? It's one of those interesting books to read. Now, what I liked about it, and the reason I use it, is I was given it as a present. And so it's not one I'd normally pick up, but I found it kind of interesting in that it gave me a lot of ideas about things I would go and investigate. So it was a nice sort of starting point and a nice sort of go and look into it and think about it from a different perspective. I don't agree with all that's in here, and I think some of it's a little bit, how do I put this politely? A little bit quiche, but it does have some stuff in here which really does, how do I put this? It really does start your thinking and looking into other things. So it's a good prep book. It's a good book which starts you off looking at other things. And it's got lots of interesting little diagrams. So if you're looking for a quick introduction to, let's say this way, if you have currently no basis of understanding of ground warfare on modern land warfare, and you want a quick introduction to all the things that are going on, all the various systems, this is actually a very good one to start off with. It will give you more questions than answers, but that's actually a good thing for a prep book, that it does give you more questions and answers. Because what you want from a prep book is it makes you go away and look for more. You want something which starts you off, you read through and you think, I'd like to know more about this. I'd like to know more about this. This author has skipped through quite a lot of stuff, but they've skipped through it in a way that they show it to you, but you get to go look at it and you can go look for it elsewhere. Then the Americans will start having city names reappearing as options for ships as the Los Angeles class go out of service and decommission. That is true. That will be advantageous to the Americans. I wish Poland had purchased the M1 Abrams. Why? Why would anyone... Look, I love the M1 Abrams. It's a great tank, but why would anyone purchase it? Unless it's the Americans. It is the most gas-guzzling... It's a perfect tank. It's a lovely system, but it's incredibly expensive. So anyone who isn't America at the height of the Cold War can't really afford to keep it going. This is the real reason why the M1 Abrams and US Marine Corps have parted ways. It's not because the US Marine Corps really can't make a use for tanks in their new doctrine. They could. Having a tank go ashore with the missile troops would actually be quite useful at securing them and giving them a far safer operating base. But, and this is a dirty little secret, supplying logistically and supporting an M1 Abrams is a freaking nightmare. It just is. It's too perfect. Eric Aken, is there any English books about the SOE operations in Norway during World War II? The branch with the Shetland operations with Norwegian sailors? Aren't there? I think there might be. Not sure if I have that in my list of books here today, but I think I've got one somewhere. Stephen Wilson, I have some steel toe cap trainers which are quite comfortable. Mine are steel toe cap trainers as well, to be honest. But they are still quite big. Seth Thompson. So at 180 centimeters in just height, approaching 170 million pounds, how much fun would I have trying to go around a Victory, Warrior, or Hyder if I can get aboard them? Hyder would be probably the easiest of the three, then followed by Warrior, then followed by Victory. Victory, you will spend most of your time walking around like this. Occasionally, if you try and stretch up, you'll go conk, and you'll be down like this. Jerison, it's Stephanie Wilson. It's the fact that you drag steel toe caps so you can get them caught going through hatches and bulkheads, titanium boots and wearing. Ouch. Yeah. Sure, correct. My fiance is 5'5" and banged her head on the doorframe of the top of the gangway of Victory because she was looking at the guidebook. Well, yeah. Oh, Victory is fun. Oh. My sister is luckily shorter than me, and she even has fun on Victory. She actually said her favourite to go round was Mary Rose because she got to walk around the corridors. Mm-hmm. Albertaski, we have many very theoretical production capabilities. If Poland were would build a tank, we would still need 120mm from Krupp, engine pack from MTU, and composite armament plates from the Brits. Yeah, that's what all happened. Go on, what exactly happened in Tsingtao 1939? Well, basically, the British and the Japanese had a face-off and pointed guns at each other. And war didn't happen, but it came close. Jerison, the US military stuck to M60 until they could no longer afford maintenance and were forced to switch. Yep, because frankly, even then, the M60 maintenance most of the time is still cheaper than the M1. Jeff Johnson, Dr. Clark, I'm looking at a model of I'm making a model of HMS Erin and giving it to our town. That sounds cool. Sure, Mac. Turbines are great, but you need a large land force to really see the upsides of it. That you do. So I'm not staring away from the camera the whole time, I'm going to move this. Right then. So, Adam Tambaris, hasn't the US made the Abrahams, or won't it make the Abrahams available with diesel engines for export? They keep talking about it. They do have a diesel engine variant, but no one seems to have really been getting it. HMS M1 Abrahams. Military issue visualized worked out that rather than a holy trinity of things to consider, tanks there are at least 9. M1 compromises lightness or tail for other things. Yep, it does. So USMC will be switching to use Leopard 2s. I think what the USMC will be doing, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a direct fire version of the Marine Personnel Carrier, the new 8x8 coming into service. I wouldn't be surprised if you see one with either a 105 or maybe even a 120mm gun procured. It will have no no ability to take humans in the back, but it'll be a direct fire version of that. And that will be considered a good enough substitute. That will be considered 75%. Thompson, thank you for the demonstration. I know I'll need a padded cap when I go. Hard hat. Don't go for a padded cap. Go for the full builder's hard hat safety thing with rigging on. You'll survive more likely. Vision, I actually got to climb in and out of under a patent tank at a railroad locomotive museum. Great for kids of all ages. That does sound cool. The first vehicle I ever drove was a Chieftain main battle tank. And unlike its popular things, it didn't break down on me. Maybe I'm just a very good driver. Or I was at 9, which was fun. He couldn't really reach anything. Yeah. Oh. Jeff Beeler, Canadians indicate a willingness to fight by throwing off their hockey helmet gloves and putting up their fists. Yep. Jerison, probably 105mm like the Striker. I'd say so, but the US Marine MC might want to go one better than the Army, because they might go, well, you guys got a 105, so we got a 120, like the Centauros. I think Centauros have a 120. Yeah, they do. Vision, wouldn't when you drove the Chieftain tank as a kid, did no, unfortunately, no. I had no. The only person I had along for the ride was I was in it with an army friend of my dad. I think we were at the tank museum, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had my dad was in the tank, and there's a picture of it somewhere, I think, but I have no idea where it went. I think it might have left with Dad. I'm not sure if it came back after he died, but because all sorts of stuff disappeared off. Not sure where. Kingston, USMC will never go for a non-Abrams tank, not until Congress approves a new tank. The US has several thousand M1 sitting in desert spares because Congress won't slow production. Yeah, I have a feeling, don't take this the wrong way, but the US Army's plan for an unmanned tank is an unmanned M1 Abrams, because they just literally have so many of them. Badham, if you were to enhance the RMC to a Royal Marine Corps to a division, what would you like to see added besides USMC amphibious vehicles? I would have it as 3 completely independent brigades, like the 3rd Commander Brigade, completely self-sufficient, with everything they need. Of course, the US Marine Corps Star 8x8s, but that's about it. So they become sort of amphibious strike brigades. But at the divisional level, I'd want to see another Royal Logistics, Commander Logistics Regiment. Sort of, I'd like to see the Commander Logistics Regiment sort of have battalions for each of the brigades and for the division. So the division is also self-sufficient, have its own artillery, have reconnaissance assets, have all the things it needs built in, and maybe have aviation assets built in as well at that level. So basically, I would be talking about building a self-sufficient force of self-sufficient forces. So pretty much at every level, they could go in on their own and survive and fight a peer-sized force, or maybe slightly bigger. Because that's the whole point. You have training and you have technology so that they can command a Royal Marine Commando. That's a sort of battalion equivalent, could tie down an enemy brigade. They couldn't beat an enemy brigade in a fight, probably, but they could tie them down and stop them getting anywhere. Kings, why do you keep calling Abraham rather than Abrahams? The dyslexia? No, I thought I was calling it Abrahams. Abrahams. But might just be pronunciation. John Deere tractors work well. Torres, could you have an 120mm with an autoloader in an 8x8? Probably in a Centauro or a USMC APC. They're quite big. They're both built on the Super A. I think they're both built on the Super APC system. JP, does the UK have a divisional HQ for its light units like the 3rd and the 16th? No. It doesn't, which is the interesting scenario. It's one of the reasons why you have so much fun in the Falklands War. They have to form a divisional HQ from nowhere. Golden Eagle, what exactly happened in 1939 Tsingtao? It's coming up, not this week, but next week. There's going to be all sorts of stuff about it. Daniel Freeman has posted a very nice article, which was actually one of the ones I wrote about it. Of course, the main downside the M1 does is it doesn't run on crayons, because if it did... so cruel. You're so cruel to the US Marine Corps. And it's kind of interesting because in the Royal Marine, Britain, the Royal Marines are famed as some of our smartest soldiers, and then you have the US Marine Corps have this sort of reputation of being crayon eaters, and you're sort of going, And I have to say, every US Marine I've met has been pretty darn smart. Maybe it's the ones who are posted to the UK Embassy. I don't know. Right end. There is a second version of John Laffin's book, so I've got both the hardback and the softback version of it. It's not unusual, but there you go. So you can find both books are very, very good. Bud Guy 8829. Would post-Panamax locks in the 1930s affect ship design much in World War II? And would having all 10 US fast battleships in 1942 affect things much? If you had all 10 US fast battleships in 1942, it might make the US Navy more keen on the idea of closing with the enemy, but honestly, at this point, they're starting to think about naval aviation, so, that sort of thing. And if you had Panama, well, it would probably have increased the size of things. If you had Panamax locks, the Americans would probably be wanting to build bigger carriers and bigger battleships. So they would have been pushing for it. So the British everyone would probably ended up building bigger and having more tonnage for battleships and aircraft carriers. So that's the thing. The Panamax locks would have mainly made things bigger. I'm not sure how much of an impact that had, but I do point out sometimes that the difference between the Indomitable class and the Illustrious class is not that many thousand tons. So if you want to make an Ark Royal size strike capability with Illustrious class levels of armoring and protection and security, you're not talking that many more thousand tons. You really aren't. So they could have revolutionized what the Royal Navy aircraft carrier program was like in World War II. Far more than the Americans or Japanese, who were going for numbers anyway. it probably made their air groups even bigger. But at a certain point, having a really massive air group starts to create a lot of problems for you. Whereas the British would have probably reached the peak of able operating capability air group, but would have had a very survivable aircraft carrier quite within that tonnage. It could be interesting. Antares, Kingsrook, I'd love to see the Abrams use the fast reload system they were talking about, plus the semi-automatic loader that they use on Merkava. Could be interesting. Samuel, well, now we have the benefit of the Allied Rapid Reaction Corps, which is basically a NATO Corps HQ in a box ready to go. So it means us we could just use it for own purposes to headquarter 16 AA and 3rd Command Brigade. Yeah, but those two brigades, I'm not sure if they're either one of them was that strength to actually be called a brigade anymore. The UK needs a combined operations division HQ for units like the 3rd or 16th. I thought one of the new army ones was one. Not really. Really not. They talk about it, but they don't actually become it. Basically, the army's idea is always to attach 3rd Commander Brigade into an existing formation of theirs, and it doesn't tend to work. Because for some reason, the Royal Marines, if they want to be attached to a proper divisional HQ, would like to be providing some of the staff officers in it. Can't think why. One time is King's Rook. I watched it. It was extremely good. I'm presuming that's on Chieftain's video. JFB, Army 2020 is trying to move away from divisions and more into brigades for flexibility. That they are. And what's interesting is that the British Army is moving into brigades and talking about moving into brigades. At the same time, the Americans are talking about reforming up to divisions. So I have a feeling the Army's going to be going, we're into brigades. And then they're going to go, hang on, everyone's got back into divisions. Oh, sugar. Why is everyone in divisions? Gibberful, do you have any contacts with the French naval architects? A couple. Jerison, apparently USMC tankers were often the choice to join army tankers. Offered the choice to join army tankers. And apparently, when they turned up, the good lord. So Thompson, also a lack of history being taught about local regiments. I came across a really cool photo in that book we got recently. We'll share on Discord with you later. I never knew we had rifles. Oh, cool. There's some really good, interesting chats going on about the British Army. Bud Guy 8829. How much would a World War II version of the Mark IV D8 torpedoes affect things? And the US started Pershing production in 1943 instead of 1944 or 45. Pershing production in 43 instead of 44 or 45 would have given them a far better tank force earlier on, especially for deploying around various places in the island campaigns. As for Mark 48 torpedoes, well, it's a good anti-submarine warfare torpedo, so I presume if you have something like that in World War II, that means you probably don't need anti-submarine warfare mortars, and probably increasing the problem for most submarines because they're not really that quiet. And it would cause a whole lot of things that have to be developed, but it could cause, it could make the whole anti-submarine operations quite an interesting possibility. And Mark 48 could be used off some very, very small combatants, so because it's quite light compared to some of the big anti-ship torpedoes. So it would have made ASW slightly more fun. Let's see. Next one. I'll go with the SBS book. I know it's terrible, but it actually does. It actually is quite a good fan. So, SBS book, John Parker's SBS, and you do notice similar authors keep the same authors' names keep coming up again in quite a lot of these works, and there is a reason for that. Those seem to be the people who are interested in them. And they're a lot of fun. It's a good book. It's an interesting one, as I was saying the other day. It's got lots of interesting pictures and interesting maps in. It's also got a very, like with a Gurkha book, it has a very full take on their careers, on what they got up to. And it has things in there in the equipment list, like how many toothbrushes they take with them and how many socks they get with them, and what they can take onto the parent ship, what they would not take onto the parent ship, what they would get to do, the various fitness trials they have to do, and physical fitness tests. And some of the things they get up to. There's a lot of interesting stuff. It's a very interesting book, and if you are interested in the SBS, it is definitely one I'd get. Let's see if we can't find a better fan. I think using an entire ream of paper is probably a bit too much. A UK Combined Operations Division should include Royal Navy staff too, from what Michael Clapp was saying. Yes, and probably Royal Air Force. It should probably be a joint services staff command structure for a joint expeditionary command HQ, what I would call it, under a rotational 2-star officer. So sometimes a rear admiral, sometimes a major general, sometimes whatever. Kingsroom, if round sizes on tanks getting larger than 120mm, then autoloaders will be in musters. They'll be too heavy for one person to load, or will have to come in 2 pieces, which will get slow unloading. Bingo. Aaron Terrace, Dr. Clark, the proposed rapid reload system for the Abrams involved lifting out of the racks under the blowout panels wholesale, then craning in new ammunition. Fun. Richardson, that's very, very long. Oh. Southern Dr. Clark, Dan Freeman. The number 7 company of Air and the 30th Regiment of Wellington Rifles, pictured in 1904. Cool. I'll look for that on Discord and later. Link to Discord down below. Oh, right. What are the service periods like in the RN? Time in regulars and reserve? Regulars are mostly, it's about 12 years. Some are in for longer, but it's sort of most do roughly 12 years. Sort of is the average I hear of the people who get out early. Quite a lot gone for the full 25. Carl Harmon, how are you coping in the seat? I'm surviving okay. It's easier when I can have my door open, but apparently when I have my door open and I'm talking, I'm too loud for the rest of the house because I do go into full lecturing mode. I've also had to watch because some of the videos I've recorded with Daniel, I have found that I am naturally adopting this position, which is what I adopt when I am sitting comfortably in my chair, normally doing bilge pumps. And I don't know why this has become my comfortable position, but it has. But it looks rather weird when the camera's in closer and it's going down. So I have to be quite careful about those things. Garment. Also, Dr. Clark, do you think the RN should be asked to help the crisis at Dover? If so, how? And do they need more vessels suitable to this, in your opinion? I think they have been asked, so I'm sure they will take part and help. I'm sure the Archer class will be involved and the River class. That's the vessels which are most likely to be used. And possibly some of their air search helicopters are going to be helped. Some Merlins and Lynx going to come in for assistance, along with the Royal Air Force. Probably will have a P8 coming over the channel, which always sounds fun, but that's the sort of viable thing you're sort of going to use. It's going to sound strange. I'm supportive of them being used. Now, I don't think you should take money from the regular budget for it. I think it should be paid for out of the Home Office budget. And I think that if they are going to suggest that, one of the things I found annoying is that they actually sold off one of the River class. Admittedly, it was HMS Clyde, the Falklands patrol boat, but they sold her off to, is it Bahrain? I think. While this was started going on, and it was a case of actually it would be really useful. Yes, we've returned the batch ones to service, but actually having her, the batch 1A sort of vessel, along would have been just that extra hull in the water for this, and she can, of course, helicopters can use her at flight deck, so having her around would have been quite useful, along with whatever batch 2 is available, just as the extra things. But no government ever does sensible joined up thinking. Just remember, we sold off 3 Type 23 frigates to Chile. They'd have been quite useful to keep. I'm not sure if I'd call it a crisis, but it's what's going on. It needs to be dealt with. It's always going to have to be dealt with at some point. You're always going to have to deal with things happening It's quite simple. The French seem to be being overwhelmed, whether that's due to lack of personnel on their side, I'm not sure. It's a very difficult thing to look at. So it's going to end up in the water, which is going to end up with us having to do it, and we're going to have to find a boat somewhere. And short term, until you can ramp up the border force, it's probably going to mean a navy called in to help out. Carmen, an MOD officially been asked to help. I don't support us. Yeah. Look, it's going to happen. Whenever the civilian authorities get into trouble, they tend to ask the military because they're the next pool of available equipment and personnel to help out, and that's what's going on here. The border force is being overwhelmed, and it takes time to train up, buy ships, and organize for the border force. And yes, we can all say we could have all seen this coming. And arguably, part of the reason why the three River class batch ones were actually brought back into service was because this was seen coming. So you can't say it wasn't being prepared for, and Navy weren't saying they were going to take help out, because otherwise they got the River class batch ones under back under false pretenses. Jeff Wheeler, what are the current different special forces in the UK? SAS, SBS, and Special Reconnaissance Regiment. Plus, there's the Special Operations Support Group and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Mm-hmm. You've got and 30 Commando. Yeah, we can call them as well. That. Vision. Mother is spending her Christmas money on a new air conditioning for the living room. Old one finally died. Rest of the house to out. Brought reclining chair, cat chair to move outside. Sounds sensible. Carmen, I was surprised the HMS Clyde decommission has sold. It's so new, should have been kept. Yeah, I would have kept it, especially with all this going on. Arnold Torres, are the British moving away from 4.5-inch deck gun to 5-inch? They are probably now, because it's just we're the only ones really using it, and everyone else has moved to 5-inch, so probably we're going to end up with 5-inch as well. Buddy Guy 8829, does the UK have a Coast Guard force like the US does? It does have a Coast Guard, but mainly it has the Border Force, who are supposed to have their boats out. Banham, let's say you have been hired to help from the navies of Denmark, Netherlands, and Norway with somewhat free reign regarding budget. What would you do? When am I being hired to help, and what am I being hired to help to? Do they want to sort of build new ships and upgrade? Because if I'm the Danish, I just keep building more of what the Danish are doing. In fact, for the Netherlands and Norway, I would just keep building the Danish ships and include them in the Stanflex program, honestly. The Ivy Hilt class, etc., would just be great for them, and the Absent class would be good command ships, and I'd probably go with the Norwegian submarines because they're really, really cool, and Dutch have some great OPVs. So, Wilson, we have something called the Border Patrol, who are controlled by the Home Office and supposed to be sorting this out, this crisis. Yes, but what I always remember in every meeting I've ever met the Border Patrol, I have to say that I have been very impressed by the personnel, less than impressed by the procurement. So I've been really impressed by the can-do attitude and hard work of the people, less impressed by the number of ships and things they get, because I think there is a consistent underestimating, and has been for many years since they were set up, and that was a long time ago, in the sheer quantity. It's always been based on the idea that we were part of Europe and everyone else in Europe would deal with the problem for us. And so we have had no concept of what we actually needed to do the job. Fun times. I'm sorry, I do like the 57mm and 76 weapon systems on ships. They are nice. The 57mm fits better. If you're a nation which doesn't have larger guns, the 76mm is a very good idea. If you're a nation which has the larger guns, you might as well go for the 57 because you've got larger guns to do the fire control you need it. I just wish we had more of them. Basically, you would combine to get equivalent to the Coast Guard in the UK. You'd have to combine the Border Force, Fishery Protection Squadron, all sorts of things. Do the Royal Marines have reservists? Yes. If so, what do they do? Landing craft, rigid raiders, and some are specialists for the regiment, for the brigade, and various other things. Logistics regiment and these things. Van Gergen, are there any more common ship hulls than OPVs for this? E.g., if these are crossings on calm days, would more inshore vessels be viable? Yes, basically you could rapidly churn out some, I don't know, lifeboat-style vessels. Probably actually quite simple, but it's probably going to be Archer class. I suspect HMS Glide may have been bashed around a lot in the South Atlantic, so not only really good fit for gentle duties somewhere like the Gulf. To an extent, possibly, but she could have done the Channel, which is what we'd have needed from her for the moment. And that's the thing. The Channel isn't that bad compared to the South Atlantic. Vision, selling River class seems ill-advised. Good vessels to keep in reserve. Use for reserves training or to loan to other government agencies. That would have been what I would have been doing with them. I'd have kept them in production, though. I would have kept having a thing with the River class. I'd have had one rolling out of the shipyard every year. So that was our yearly ship entering service. Just sell off the old ones if you don't need them anymore, but just keep them going to keep the yards going, because you can always then not sell them and raise the numbers up when you need to. Hi, Ickers. Kingsrock, Dr. Clark, any idea why did the RCN call out a new Marine Infantry Group N2TG rather than some variation of Royal Canadian Marines? No idea. I presume it was some political correctness going on. Would be nice to just call them Royal Canadian Marines. Which is why, well, that was actually a rumor that went around, and it was kind of interesting. There was this sort of report that someone had said off the record something along the lines of Home Secretary should short down MS. Very quickly, an MOD official statement came out saying, no, we're here to help. The nicest way, it's budget time. There is all sorts of people looking at the Ministry of Defence. You either be helpful or the Treasury is going to come for you. So they're going to be as helpful as they can. In fact, this is almost a golden opportunity for the Royal Navy and for the Ministry of Defence to go, look at how useful we are. We're doing a very high-profile mission for you, government, because you weren't quite prepared for this. It's a very good thing for the Navy from that perspective. From an operational perspective, it's annoying and complicated. But from a funding perspective, get involved. Do it. Because remember, the Navy has to make its case for the funding to the wider public, but also to the government. So actually being useful does help. Even if it's not something you really want to do, it's something you want to do. Oh, let's see. Let's put this on charge quickly. just in case. Admiral Tiberius, Dr. Clark, how long do you think the Taiwanese Navy can keep the former Kid-class destroyers going? They've been trying to get an upgrade package from them, including VLS, nothing so far. As long as they need them, and basically they need them. Because they need the hulls, and especially with China currently acting up as much as it is, the more hulls help. Don't you mean the enhanced boarding parties? I think to keep naval nature. More than partially that certainly is it, but you could have still called them Marines. No, Marines are still naval. Sam Thompson, Dr. Clark, those are tiny for warships. 40 minutes close to 100%. Yes, okay. Deck mounts, those still think 105 should be the smallest. Yeah. 57mm is pretty darn good. And especially, it's what the ship is going to be used for. It makes sense. I would have liked a 5-inch, yes, but that's the way things are. In my ideal world, the Type 31s would have a 5-inch and a 57mm forward and two 40mm aft. And all the 40s and the 57s would be doubles. 5-inch would probably still be a single, because making it double would be very, very expensive at the moment. But, you know, that would be my ideal world. That's not going to happen, though. But that would give you your profile of double 57mm forward, double 40mm aft to cover this side, another double 40mm on this side covering it. If you turn your rear to face the enemy and sort of turn yourself on an angle, you'd have both these 40mm covering it, and the 57mm possibly if it's at the right angle, and the 5-inch if it's at the right angle, and you could have a nice load of firepower coming off the target. Or, you know, that's the thing. You would have certain quarters would have lots and lots of firepower to cover them. Jack Hunter, have you ever read Barbara Tomlin's With Utmost Spirit, Allied Naval Operations in the Mediterranean, 1942 to 45? It looks like it could be useful for my studies, but it's pretty darn expensive. Okay, it's good, but I was using a library copy. But it was good. If it's the one I'm thinking of from Barbara Thomas, it was even expensive for me to consider buying, and I wasn't really. I read the library copy, and I wasn't really sure if it was worth it to buy. I'm going to look into it again at some point because I keep doing stuff about the Mediterranean, so it would seem sensible to go and procure it. But I'm going to say, cost. It was very expensive. Bud Guy 8829. Did the UK work on an early AWACS like the US and did in World War II? Yes. At one point, they were even talking about using Swordfish for carrier-based airborne early warning. Carl Harmon, should the RN Border Force get some Miltema class as rapid building program to help for now? Probably. Something. That's the on current build, or there's the Royal Navy Workboat program, which is already in production. Maybe some of those could be transferred to it. It's going to be a case of finding a viable asset and using it. Carl, I honestly don't get government. Why not buy 10-mile class alongside mill big enough and can take rough seas and yet fast build? It's probably what the Border Force should end up doing, and it's certainly what I've suggested to them they should do. They've got these lovely, great big cutters, which are lovely, but I think they didn't even. And I think part of the reason possibly is they don't want to be seen to be getting into the lifeboat services way and copying the lifeboat service. They don't want to be seen to be muscling in on lifeboat services job if they buy them. But it's a sensible procurement. Jerison, I say bring back MTBs, MGBs, single closing weapon system, 40-57 gun. Yeah, sounds fun. It's getting funding for that capability outside of wartime, though. That's your problem. Stephanie Wilson, Carl Hammond, you're assuming our government is rational and thinks strategically. I don't think we have had a government since... Disraeli? That's thought strategically, let alone rationally. Gladstone as well. They were fairly strategic and rational people. But, no. Democracy is good at getting leaders who think politically, which can look the same as strategically and rationally in certain circumstances, and depends what the priority of the time is. If the priority of the time is defense and security, they will listen to it. If the priority of the time is not defense and security, they won't, and then everything is replaced by expediency rather than strategy. It's the joy of the democratic system, which is the worst form of government apart from all the others. Jerushan, Carmen, Iran is a charity quango at best. If it's not a government, it is not a government department. However, if they went bust, it probably would be. Yes, if they went bust, which is why the government does everything it can to make sure the RNLI never ever goes bust. They do not want to get involved in it. It'd be far too expensive for the government to run. It's all based on volunteers and charitable donations, and that makes it financially viable. If the government were running it, they would have to base it off paying people, and that would be very expensive. Ben Grogan, I missed a few live streams, so it's this been asked. Beyond the first survey ship on site, what help do you see the RN sending to Beirut? LPD for infrastructure engineers? If I was going to send anything, I would be sending Albion or Bulwark, with fully loaded with, basically loaded with Royal Logistics Corps and Army Engineering. Probably from the Commando Logistics Regiment and the Commando Engineering teams and all their heavy equipment and going, we're here to help. That would be the best thing you could probably send. Because combining with the landing craft and all sorts of things they can bring and the helicopter support facilities they can mount, that would be really, really useful. At least the Bay class loaded on them, but probably Albion and Bulwark. Because also it's the commander control facilities they bring. If you took Albion or Bulwark out there, they could literally set up and become a command and control hub for all sorts of national assets, all sorts of things going in there, in a nice, safe place where people could have all their communications, all their things going in, and it would be really, really sensible. Amtaris, twin 40 Dardo mount is absolutely brutal. Amazing. 500 rounds a minute. Yep. I like the twin 40s. Hence, I want 2 of them. And a twin 57. Dirt Squad. My main concern with the RN dealing with migrants in the channel is that the Home Office will put them in a position of ordering them to do something illegal, or at least against the unit costs. The Home Office won't. Okay. In the nicest way, they won't. Our government will work with the laws. The British government will work with the laws as they stand. If they change the laws, and those laws will become the laws of the land, they will not order them to do anything illegal. Because A, the Navy wouldn't follow it, and B, it would create such a political flashback that they would cause humongous trouble. This is not the type of government which is out to lose elections. They want to stay in power. and they've shown themselves to be quite good and quite effective at winning elections. I don't think they're going to start trying to stuff it up now. They're having enough fun dealing with one massive crisis not of their creating without dealing with a whole load of crises of their creating. Now, you can say how they reacted to this crisis wasn't particularly brilliant, and this, you can say, this subsequent crisis is to an extent of the creating of the circumstances and should have been foreseen. But they can also say that they did sort of try and foresee it with the River class batch ones. So it becomes a complicated scenario. Bando, why is it the double 5-inch system is seen as really expensive? Is it weight or the trouble with having the same system in half space? It's basically the fact that we'd be going alone. That's why it's expensive. The double 40, double 57mm are mostly already developed or being done. Double 5 would be lovely, and I'd love it, but it would have to be developed by the British government, and I don't think they'd do it. At Stephanie Wilson, Dope Squad. There's already been. There's already been. So there's already been talk at home of asking the Navy to push boats back to France in French waters, which would upset the French had. It would do. Martin, RN done the job in the Med off the Libyan coast of HMS Enterprise and Ocean, so I think they know what they're doing. Yeah, that's the thing. They have done it before. They just did it off the coast of Italy, not off the coast of the UK. Then I think the worry is the RN might start actually treating people they pick up according to the international treaty. Possibly, but I don't think. I think the government would also prefer they get treated according to treaty, because the British government isn't in the place where it wants to start setting precedents for China, etc. So, yeah, they're going to be treating them according to treaty because they understand this. Paul, Dr. Clark, how many Sea Scepter will actually be manufactured? And without significant foreign orders, will they keep production line open? In the crisis, reloads may be an issue. Okay. So, Paul, I hear about this one a lot. More than enough Sea Scepter will more than likely be produced. The production line will be kept open because Sea Scepter is part of the CAM system, which is being used for aircraft, army, air defense, and navy air defense. So it's going to be produced a lot. And actually, there are probably going to be a fair number of foreign orders at certain points. Once someone realizes, hang on, we can buy this and equip all three services. I think quite a lot of nations are waiting for Britain to actually iron out the issues before they jump in on the bandwagon, judging from the number of people I have met talking about it. King's Rook, doing a bit more research about the only reason I can see that NTOG are not being called Marines is because there are only about 100 sailors in the group. Probably. So it'd be a the Royal Canadian Marines Company. Jeff, what sort of joint exercises do NATO and Amphibious forces do these days? Often quite a lot in the Mediterranean and the off the coast of Norway. I think they invaded Iceland recently as well as an exercise, or at least not too long ago. Danny, shall we move on from current UK domestic politics? That sounds rather sensible. This is supposed to be history Q&A. Right. Bud Guy 8829. Do you think the USN is done with a 6-inch in any working form and it's just 5-inch or railgun? And do you see any navies putting a bow and stern mounted main guns again in future classes? If the railgun starts to work and works really, really well, you might well see them talking about putting in 3 turrets with it, in which case you may well have a stern-mounted one as well as 2 forward ones. They could well be 10-inch or they could be 6-inch. It's interesting. They have been looking at a 6-inch one as well as 10-inch, and that 6-inch might solve some of the problems they're initially having. But, you know, at the moment it's 5-inch. 5-inch is where all the action's at, because that's what they're all standardizing on, because it saves money while they're pushing money into developing the next generation of things, which is going to be railguns. And railguns do need more developing. They're good ideas and good prospects, but they're not yet there. Dr. Clark, on the subject of motor torpedo boats, is the channel issue not a perfect chance? Quickly design a ship fit for but not with, and just push the expansion of helping. Tempting, but problematic. And also, where are you going to rapidly build it, and are you going to build it in time to be useful? Aaron Tiberius, I wish the US Navy would dust off the old plans for a fully automatic 8-inch gun. Around 25 rounds a minute, factor in the modern smart munitions and even better mechanical technology. I'd love to see that. That would be fun. It would cost something to develop, but it would be fun. Daniel Freeman, I think Italy are getting some form of CAM, but can't remember which one. I think it's the land-based one. I think also Canada and Australia are both looking at the sea-based one. I know they officially aren't at the moment, but I think they're both looking at it from memory. Martin, do you think it would be practical for the RN to equip Queen Elizabeth with Sea Scepter Sparrow missiles as well as Theodos for extra protection? Why? No, this is a serious question. Why? You have missiles on carriers, and yes, you can do if you're the American ones and you can dock them down far enough and put them in, and you want to run it. But if you're talking about Britain, it would have to be CAM, which is a VLS system, which means it's going to go straight up, and there's going to be debris over the flight deck. Debris over the flight deck means you have to do a FOD walk before you can operate aircraft. So yes, lovely, you've got an air defense missile, but you've now the main purpose of your having the carrier is to take it is stopped because you're dealing with that. You're dealing with FOD on the flight deck. Far better to have the escort carry the missiles. That's the escort's job. It's part of the layered air defense. The carrier isn't going to be going anywhere alone. Okay? Minimum peacetime contingency is probably going to be 2 escorts. Wartime, we're probably going to be talking 4 to 6 escorts. She doesn't need to carry CAM herself. Her close-in weapon systems, her phalanx, are literally there for the circumstance where something manages to leak through the outer air defense provided by her F-35Bs, the PAM's air defense, the silver system provided by the Type 45s, the Aster-based missiles, and the Sea Scepters provided by the Type 26s and the Type 31s. So it leaks through there, then there's going to be close-in weapon systems. Up until that, plus chaff, plus all sorts of different decoys. Honestly, that space and tonnage which I would rather be using to better improve aircraft operation and better strengthen the outer perimeter than worrying about putting missiles on her. Okay. King's Rook, we've only covered 4 books. I know, and I've got a huge pile sitting next to me. So let's go with this one. Samurai. Now, I included this one in the Special Forces because, frankly, whenever I start talking about Special Forces, someone always brings them up. And so, this is Book 5, The Samurai. by Jonathan Clements. Am I back? He says, hopefully. Ay, caramba, let's see. Ede. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's get that. Sorry about that, everyone. I have no idea what happened. I was just in a nice conversation talking about lovely aircraft carriers and cams, and then this happened. I have no idea why. Wait a minute. I hope that helps. I'm sorry about that. Right then, let's go to the live chat. So I've helpfully lost some of the previous questions. So I'm sorry about that one. I have no idea what happened. It's just the internet just died on me. You mentioned samurai. I made the obligatory ninja reference and then the stream died. So it's not just the Spanish King Philip II who was taking out my internet access. It is the samurai. This is a good book. It is a good starting point. Again, it raises a lot more questions than it gives answers, but that is a good thing. I like John Clements and Jonathan Clements' points in this, and I like the idea of it raising questions. And honestly, it made a pretty good companion to Shogun Total War. I know that isn't how I should list things, but it's the case. It's true. It made a good companion to it. It's a lot of fun to read it. If the high priest make a libation of iron brew, how long do they leave it out for before taking it on the grounds of that the gods have taken their share in the form of essence of the brew? Usually when I open a bottle to the gods of the barbecue, it is not because, and I do not give it to them by that method. I use it by pouring it into my marinade for my barbecue sauce, especially for my chicken, and occasionally for some other things I do on the barbecue. Because rather like the idea of using Coca-Cola as your marinade, iron brew gives it a really, really rocking flavour. And when you're doing a Scottish-themed barbecue, and you have ordered enough iron brew, you can use it for that, and it's really, really nice. So basically, I mix up some herbs and spices for my barbecue sauce. I usually use things like some proper English mustard and various other things, and I usually use Heinz ketchup if I can't make the tomato puree myself and the ketchup myself. And then I mix in some iron brew and turn it into a very, very nice sort of barbecue-y glaze. Put it over ribs, put it over chicken. It's really, really nice. Ben Grogan. On HMS Queen Elizabeth, rather than thinking VLS like Scepters, what is your opinion of RIM 116 upgrades for Phalanx units capability-wise? It's always tempting to me, but the trouble is that introduces another system for logistics. The Royal Navy has standardized on the phalanx. I don't mind you upgrading to that. I would just upgrade everything to it, and at the moment we've got all phalanxes. I have a feeling the upgrade I'm most likely going to see the phalanx soon will be a laser-based system upgraded to them, because they're doing lots of testing of adding lasers onto them, and that's a very practical way to do it. Kahman, what are the best ships for Global Britain in terms of humanitarian relief? Albion and Bulwark and Bay class at the moment for what the Royal Navy has, in terms of being able to turn up with heavy equipment and supplies and all these things. Queen Elizabeth class are great for helicopter-based support. But really, when you want to do humanitarian relief, you need size and you need the ability to move in heavy stuff, especially if you're a government turning up. If you can turn up with some heavy plant, heavy machinery, you can do a lot of good things very quickly. Dan Phillips, I constantly feel that ships are underarmed today. I feel a dozen phalanx per side would be extremely difficult to penetrate compared to 1 or 2 we currently see. That's always a nice dream, but I don't think so. What I would, if I was going to be designing the Queen Elizabeth class air defense system, I would... You see, if I was doing it, they would have got 4 57mm and 4 40mm. And it would be 57-40 pair here. Let's say on the sort of, that's 4. And then this corner down here, 57-40. 57-40. And then 57-40 up here, just in front of the angled flight deck. And so you'd have a full all-round fire convergence, and that would be how I would run it. But they've gone for the phalanx, and they've gone for 3 of them. I would prefer again 4, because I'd have felt that had better coverage, but I can understand again, because that's a very difficult position forward of the angled flight deck. It is a difficult position to put in. I'd also have had some double 30s, probably there, and maybe one on the rear. But that's me. And I wouldn't have gone for missiles, though, strange enough, which strikes some people as strange, but I just wondered, because it causes too much trouble in air operations. You can do it if you're the Americans, if you can put them far enough down on sponsons and have them out, but you've got a 100,000-ton ship, so it doesn't affect your profile as much as it does on the Queen Elizabeth. Yeah, because Dr. Luck, I think we need a barbecue marinade channel in Discord. Tempting. Danny Freeman, I think the C-Scepter capability means the RM-16 isn't as needed for the RN for that gap inside larger SAMs. That's pretty much it. Juicy Decision. Selfishly, taking things back to my previous question, if you put 3 railguns on turrets on a ship, shouldn't you start armoring it to ensure stability of a very premium target? Probably. Probably you should. And probably they will. It'll take them a while, though, to think about it. And to get into the idea of it. What would you purchase for Carl Hammond? What would you purchase for humanitarian relief? Honestly, if I was purchasing a ship from you, it'd be an adapted Bay class, probably cheapest hull, which can bring in the heavy plant, and I'd have it give it a hangar and give it increased command and control facilities, because the major advantage Albion and Bulwark have over the Bay class is their command and control facilities and accommodation. The major advantage the Queen Elizabeths have over a Bay class is its ability to actually repair its aircraft, which you need a hangar for. So I would solve all those issues by actually sticking a hangar on the sort of slightly shortening the flight deck, but actually sticking a hangar there, which could take, let's say, 2 or 3 Merlins quite happily, and that's really what I needed to do. And using the space over the hangar, that's still level, but that's sort of the superstructure they already have, which is quite big, as expanded accommodation space for a operations room. Seb Thompson, the BCG, was I close in my placements or was I too traditional? Close. Sometimes tradition works because that's sensible. You know, the thing is, the tradition is often being worked on because it's sensible. King's Root, which LHD would you eye strengthen for the RCN? If I've got to buy off the shelf, it's probably got to be the Canberra class variants. It's going to be that sort of size thing. The Mistral class you could possibly get away with because the Russians were already working on an ice strengthened version of that. So that which the French were part of, so that'd be possibly cheaper off the shelf. But if you're going to build an LHD, it might as well be a decent sized one for what you need it. Nighthand Production, odd question, albeit rather grim for anyone who can answer. Does anyone know how comparable the Beirut blast was compared to the Halifax blast? I've heard it was about 3 kilotons, about a quarter of Trinity, roughly. Is what I've heard, roughly. Decision. So what does Royal Navy call its first armoured railgun cruiser? Do we just call it a battlecruiser or a battleship? It would probably be called a... Honestly, they would probably call it a destroyer. In fact, honestly, if it is going to be come in, looking at about the timeline for railguns becoming practical and these sort of things, I would call it the Type 45 successor. So probably the Type 48 or 49, depending on how many they've jumped ahead. Because we've gone Type 42 to 45. So 43, 44 were a no build, and then we built 45. So 46, 47 no build, so 48 is the next probably one. And as I said, I'm already expecting it to have a tumble-down hull, a tumble-down bow. Literally because everyone else is building one at the moment. And by that time, the Royal Navy is going to feel, we're behind because everyone else has one and we don't. So let's see. Next one. Pegasus Bridge. Stephen Ambrose. I don't normally recommend Stephen Ambrose books that often, but Pegasus Bridge is a cool one. It's one of those forgotten things, and here's the thing on the back. In the early morning hours of 6th of June 1944, a small detachment of British airborne troops stormed the German defence force and paved way for the Allied invasion of Europe. Pegasus Bridge was the first engagement on D-Day. It was so crucial that had it been unsuccessful, the entire Normandy invasion might have failed. Ambrose traces each step by the preparations over many months to the minute-by-minute excitement of the confrontations on the bridge. Basically, a bridge had to be secured, and it was secured using glider troops, which I know Jay Richardson mentioned his father, I think, did a study of it sort of earlier. So there you go. Pegasus Bridge. Worthwhile looking at. And I will just add its details into the thing. There we go. So, this book doesn't have pictures in it. It does have maps, which is always nice, but it doesn't have pictures. The maps are quite nice drawn, but what it does have is, with all of Stephen Ambrose's books, it has a lovely story going through it. Again, please note this one. This has been a common theme of books I picked out this week, has been they're producing a history in terms of they are something which is it's a story. It carries itself forward. It produces more questions than it produces answers. There are better books on Pegasus Bridge, but this is a good entryway into that discussion. This is a good entryway into thinking about it, into talking about it. Decisions to answer that question. Nighttime production. 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate is what was removed from an impounded ship in the harbour 6 years ago. The 42% is based on Wikipedia hunting, so take a small bunch of salt. Probably. Dr. Clark, the thing that annoys me about Pegasus Bridge is that he writes about the London Fire Department. It is the fire brigade, or you can call it fire department, but it is wrong. Yes, I know, but this is Stephen Ambrose. Occasionally, I complain that Norman Freeman views things from an American perspective. Stephen Ambrose is even more American perspective. It is called the London Fire Brigade, the LFB. And it's a good book. It is a good and interesting book. We then have the next ones up. Our giant book of the SAS and Special Forces, which I mentioned the other day is pretty darn cool and is pretty useful, and it does have pictures, but mostly what's useful about it is kind of like the first book I showed you. It explains stuff. It gives you a starting point to go and look out for more, and that's one of the things which are most often forgotten. And I find it strange when some of my colleagues look down on some of these books and go, "Oh no, that's not academic. That's not a proper book." And I go, no, that book provides a lot of questions. It provides a starting point for a lot of these things, but most importantly, it provides you an entry point. It provides your sort of platform you can springboard off into it, and that's what this book is very much like. Jerishan. Richard Todd was at the Pegasus Bridge and played someone who was actually there. He had a violent breakdown and they had to take a blank firing Sten gun off him as he wouldn't stop shooting the German actors. Ouch. But doesn't really surprise me. Vision, reading The Economist doesn't help with my American English either. Nah, probably not. Then, one of the nice things about the Pegasus Bridge unit is that unlike the other Special Forces units, it was just a slightly randomly chosen company of a county regiment. Yes, and they did a very, very good job. Jeremy, creating questions. Are there any good books about Russian Special Forces translated in English or English language history critiques still believe in Surah fairy tale? Honestly, most of them seem to believe in the Surah fairy tale still. I do agree. Most of the good translations I've read have not been published yet. Seth Thompson, born and raised in Canada, watching so much British TV grow out, spent so much time around expats that I developed a bit of an accent. If I'm around a real one, talking, it gets worse. Listening to me must be having real fun then for you. See, Ambrose, wasn't this the guy that also made Ambrose? Bingo. Yes, he did. And I have that book as well somewhere. And the Pacific. And Stewart McClean, The History of the Special Raiding Squadron, Paddy's Men. I didn't go into this book as much as I could have done the other day, but it's got some road maps. And see if I can find the pictures again. Really big maps of the Adriatic Sea and what they're getting up to and turmoil. And picture, and of course a lovely map of the obligatory map of Italy for them. And then we got some pictures, well, which is all very good, nice. And their various things from Ulster Monarch and their launching. And this is what I always find interesting because I look through these pictures of these people. Most of them weren't in the military before World War II. And they all look so freaking young that, frankly, I would be the old man in their units. And that scares me sometimes, thinking about the decisions they were having to make. But it's a good, very nice book. It's The SAS History of the Special Raiding Squadron, Paddy's Men by Stewart McClean. It's a very good book, and I'll add that as well to the list. Right then, let's see. What have we got coming here? Yeah. Gone Eagle, I really don't think an EM gun nor emails will work. I think emails will work fine, and once they've ironed out the kinks, and they seem to be getting there now, and I think EM guns, why do you think they already haven't? Steam Generation, isn't there a petition to ban Peppa Pig in America because children are getting British accents? I also have picked up numerous accent markers from Piggle. Sometimes it's easier to make those decisions when you haven't had the weight of outcome presented upon you. Yeah. Ben Gargan. This clock. Completely random question. Do Orange ships still have onboard machine shops? If so, how big capable are they compared to the old ones? Or have we replaced them with more logistics reliance? No, they still have onboard shops as part of their engineering machinery spaces. And they still do have logistics reliance as well, but they do a lot of work themselves. And that's one of the interesting things when you look at the Type 31. So those facilities are going to be slightly expanded compared to relative portion of a Type 45 or a Type 26 because they are expected to be operating out further away from home. Expect those to be areas where you find a 3D printer, etc. Oh, Peppa Pig shouldn't be banned. What other gateway program is going to get people into The Simpsons? In the UK. Vision, Sophie Wilson, Stuff Thompson. I even sometimes catch myself saying Lieutenant. Yes, I agree with using correct names, be it the Canadian Pacific Railway or the Alaskan Railroad. It's one of the things I have fun when I'm dealing with it, because I like my N-gauge railways, and I've been getting into that and really doing a lot of work. But most of the better N-gauge YouTubers are Americans. So they're doing all sorts of railroads. They keep talking about railroads, and I found myself saying railroad the other day, and I just went, oh my. It happened. All right. Again, if in doubt, if you fancy a book with a lot of blacked out faces and various scenarios, you'll find this book interesting. It's Task Force Black by Mark Urban. Apparently, it's the explosive true story of the SAS and the secret war in Iraq. I'm not sure. Again, I wasn't that impressed with some of its writing, but it did leave me with a lot of questions, which I went away and answered. So that was the thing. It creates a lot of questions in your mind. It's not as good as the final book we're going to be looking at in a second. But before I get into that, I want to show you something. Night, Jay. Take care. So, airplane spotter cards. These are some really. This is a reproduction of the World War II cards, and I found them the other day while I was cleaning out my house. They're US Game Systems Inc. makes them, and they've got all sorts of aircraft types and cool. And I thought, considering the amount of people who on my Discord liked playing ship or plane, guessing what it is, I thought this would be an absolutely perfect thing for you lot to see. And I thought some of you might want to go get yourself them because they are really cool. And it has lots of them in it. It's actually, my count is there are, including the Jokers and the various other specials, there are 60 different aircraft types in here. Jeff Beeler, when did RN ships stop carrying landing cannon, or do they still do, or anti-tank missiles or cargo stuff? They didn't. They haven't. They've stopped carrying landing cannon, but they still carry machine guns, which can be quite easily taken off. And usually they have Royal Marines attachments, which have various things on them. And also, we are talking about a ship which tends to have space. And if you have Marines and you have space and they have space to store things, it's amazing what can appear in your set of stores. So, you know, I wouldn't like to say what they don't have, but I'm fairly sure they do have a lot of interesting stuff. Ben Clock, as a separate question, is there any way to trace a Lave's career when the RN owned it? I have a 13 by 30 Dean Smith Grey slave that my father said was ex-RN Selos. Theoretically, you could ask the Naval National Archives to see if they have any records of it and its purchase and its positioning. The other option would be to find out its bill of sale, where it was sold from, and therefore sort of start looking around which bases in that area and go work your way back that way. I've not read that one, but Mark Evans is a good writer. He does ones on British records in American treason experiments and rivals in Napoleonic Wars. Yes, he's far better at the pure history stuff than he is necessarily at the modern stuff. I tend to prefer some of his historical stuff than some of his current affairs stuff. Benjamin, when talking railroad terms with my fellow Americans, I find myself seeing sleepers instead of cross ties, bogies instead of trucks. Cool. Stephen Wilson, Thompson's engine is more on that thing. Yes, but I used to prefer. I still do. I always loved Thomas Tank Engine, but my favorite was always Tugs. That's what I used to love. I haven't seen it in years. I'm trying to track it down on Netflix and Amazon Prime because it'd be a lovely thing to have on the background while I'm writing because you basically could just listen to it for ages. But you know. Gonning, if the RN is going to go through all this nonsense, so-called EM railguns, they might as well get 1930s blueprints out and start building county-class heavy cruisers. No, you can build something far better than a county class nowadays. The county class was very good for its time, but you can build something better now. And as I said, a tumble-down hull and all these things will probably be part of it. Probably will be about 10,000 tons, though, if not slightly more. Probably, I'm reckoning probably coming in about 12,000 tons, especially it depends on how they have to go for the power generation. There's a scary prospect. You might see them have to use the Rolls-Royce, a small form nuclear reactor, as a ship-based reactor system to power them. I know lots of people don't like the idea of nuclear reactors on ships in case they get sunk with them on them, but that seems the option. You could probably case that enough concrete to be okay if it got sunk or hit. Jeff, so no practicing gun run on board ship, not these days. Then him, and one on a tank in World War II, but can't remember which one. I haven't read that either. Remark Evan. Jerison, CGI reboots are never good. Thomas the Tank Engine, Fireman Sam, Bob the Builder, Captain Scarlet, Thunderbolts, They have yet to ruin Stingray. Ooh. King's Rook. Theodore Tugboat is better than Tugs. Theodore Tugboat is a rip-off of Tugs. Okay? Sorry, King's Rook, but that is it. Tugs was great. Ben Graham, I'm sorry, Tom sang in this and nothing of either the engine. Used to love Ivor. Ivor the engine. It's on YouTube, last I checked. I'll have to look it hand it up. Jeff Beeler, railguns need AC rather than DC, so World War II or earlier designs would not need much reworking. Don't go there. It'll just be rebuilt. It will be a new design. They're corrected in nuclear reactors on ships. We have a use for civil engineer students. Concreted in nuclear... Yeah, we do. Abazaski, Doc, we'll see more combat ships built Catamaran or Trimaran, or LCS successfully buried the idea for years. Probably attempting the Trimaran. King's Rook, you cannot rip off something when you made both of them. Sam Thompson, if the reactor compartment sank to the bottom, wouldn't the pressure contain most of the radiation? Yep. Then from, I worry about the potential for not friendly to the younger audience jokes about Tug the boat alongside Captain Pugwash, Urban Smith crewman. We're not going to start in on Captain Pugwash here. Captain Pugwash was a much-loved part of my childhood. I'm leaving them be. Eric Ocken, doesn't the tumble home hull have weakness with instability when flooding? Not really. In fact, it's actually very, very stable now. Now we've got modern stabilizers and modern design. The old tumble home design versus the new one, in terms of the realities, it's kind of like scramjet and ramjet engines. When they are first conceived, they aren't practical because of the level of metallurgy at the time. It's the same with the tumble home hull. The problems with it in the earlier times can actually mostly be fixed by modern metallurgy. Hi, Trent Telenko. Yickers, we can all agree bananas in pajamas are terrifying. Bananas in pajamas are coming down the stairs. Yep, definitely. That was one of the scariest songs I ever heard. Some people can find a double entendre in the most innocent comment. Yeah, they can. In the nicest way. Quite a lot of those are the Royal Marines. Getting a serious historian to do Ivor noises and making video evidence so that if my sides was on this model call. Hey, look, Ivor was fun. It was a fun story. I used to love Ivor. And besides, this is Bru Ships. This is the fun one in the week. It's the least serious sort of book commentary and the question and answering. So, I am not touching any of those. Daniel Freeman. And before anyone asks me to talk about it, because I've just mentioned it, no, I'm not touching them. We've a barge pole, those phrases. Guess to Ross. This conversation is becoming like something in a laid-back wardroom. That is pretty much the style. It's an interesting comment. We got some conversation on Twitter the other night, pushback about bilge pumps being too relaxed, and it's not invasive and not tough enough questioning. And we're sort of going, That's our whole thing, mate. We are the relaxed podcast. We sort of keep roughly to time, and we start off with a lot of questions, but it's basically three mates having a conversation, and we occasionally get joined by other mates. You know, these are the things. Sure, Mac. Have you read The Tower of Skulls? Yes, I have. It was interesting. Staff Thompson, Dust Clock, 320 by 80 by 25 with VLS 25-inch, several 40mm, see it close in weapon systems, powered by a reactor or two, would be classed as a destroyer, probably. Still. Technically. Probably. Because calling it a destroyer would sound so much better than the reality of calling it a modern cruiser. What is the what is the earliest use of special forces by the area in Room 40? There were some very specialized raw marines and sailors used in the Napoleonic Wars, especially for the insertion and extraction of agents off enemy shores. They would use some of the smallest ships in the Royal Navy, and they were very, very critical. They were the ships which had things like keels you could bring back into the ship and these sort of things, so you could make them even shallower draft, but they could still operate. They would still have necessary keel for going into deep water and these and those sort of issues. Carl Gasman, Tumbleholm. The Russian second Squadron got into some really hairy storms around Cape Horn, and Tumbleholm starships fated them better than others. Yeah. Tradition, it's Naval Geek spouting off. It's in the description. Yes, we're very honest about what it is. Ben Grogan. Here's the last one to get me on side forever. Who is the overworked servant of the... Thank you. Why is everyone afraid of Cruiser? It holds such prestige. It also holds connotations of the Imperial era. But they'll probably come back. Chris Ryan, Fight to Win. Various things of the Elite Forces. Again, this was one of the ones I got, actually. After I started off with this book, I ended up getting this book, and it took me a bit further down the line. It gives me more questions than answers, but combine the two together, it made sure I was asking the right questions. And that was the thing. Working these two together allowed me to go and ask the right questions. And that was what was really cool about them. So, Chris Ryan's Fight to Win is the final one. Right. So, I am almost out of Iron Brew, so probably another 15 or so minutes. Well, Mary, we all like bilge pumps being relaxed. It's quite nice. Goes to their pros. Let's face it, my hearties. If the UK is to thrive, then we need to get back to our ways of piracy. I concur. It's quite fun. Besides, Drac already has the armor, so frankly, piracy is the way to go. Nano Freeman, Steph Thompson. Sounds expensive. They'd call them large offshore patrol vessels if they could get away with it in the politics. Possibly. Sure, I reckon Global Britain will build cruisers, not destroyers. I reckon they'll be called destroyers. They might well... Look, let's be honest, the Type 45, Type 26, and Type 31 are all variations on cruisers. You could actually call them the Leander Town class and D class cruisers. It would actually fit with their World War II roles. Crow, political imperatives of naming ship classes are reversing. On one side of the political spectrum they are. On the other side, they're getting more sensitive. So that's the trouble. Navies have to balance both. Otherwise, they're going to have ships keep having to be renamed every time there's a new political hue takes office. Trent Telenko, will you ever get to John Dyer's Commando and Beach Jumper books? I would get to the Beach Jumper book. I haven't got Commando yet. I haven't. Let's put it this way, I ordered it, but it hasn't arrived yet. I ordered a couple of extra books about 4 extra books to arrive for this talk, and they didn't arrive, which is one of the reasons why we have 8 books. Because I had 4 on order, and they haven't arrived yet. As for the answer to the question, there's Golden Eagle and Daniel Freeman are having a nice discussion about the practicalities of electromagnetic railguns and setting them off without them becoming problematic for ships. Well, to an extent, you are focusing the direction of the charge. It's not a wide area, boom, EMP as in a nuclear blast. It's a focused one. And B, part of the design of the guns, and very much part of this, is about containing and focusing that so it doesn't affect the rest of the ship. But you are going to have to harden the ship. But there again, warships are hardened against EMP as a standard anyway. So this doesn't really worry them. You have extra hardening and you have extra layers, but honestly, it's part of a ship's build anyway. If you were firing it from a merchant ship, that would be a different thing. And there is some rumours that the Chinese, when they were testing out their coil gun, did manage to overload the ship that was firing it, which is why it came back to port so soon afterwards. But we'll leave that to one side. Ghost of the Pyros. I really feel forward to our Sunday evenings together. Rounds my weekend off nicely. Thanks all. It's a pleasure to always be here. Jeff Beeler, Chris, I stabbed someone, Ryan, of the Keystone SAS, showing that look, maybe not, but still, the two together, the Robert Stirling book and the Chris Ryan book, give you a good basis to start off and do your research and good questions to ask. So that's the point. And that's what I sort of describe them as. They are good starting points. Sure, Matt Golding, I will. Vision. I think railguns, core guns work. It's like the time it took to go from cast iron MLR to steel BLR guns. Same with lasers, but I think traditional guns will advance too. I think they will all sort of advance at this point going forward. I think traditional guns are going to be around for a while because railguns are going to be chronically expensive to come in. But I can see the major navies. It's kind of like unmanned surface vessels. They're going to be very expensive the first few generations to get right because operating in the sea is different and more complicated than operating in the air. Because the air as a medium isn't actively trying to kill you, whereas the sea as a medium is actively trying to kill you. It just is. The fact is the air has currents and has things going through it in terms of the air movements, but those aren't likely to blow you into rocks unless you stop flying. whereas a ship will get blown into rocks even if it just stops, even if it sort of is driving along. It just isn't moving along fast enough or in quite the right direction, or doesn't see the rocks, which are their new ones, which weren't noticed in the chart. Nighttime production. On paper, with equally competent and well-trained crews, which ship class would have advantage in a 1v1? County class or Hipper class? Probably counties, to be honest. Especially if they're the first generation counties, because they have the 70-degree guns which can have plunging fire, which is really quite cool. Jeff Beeler, which books were most useful for prep on the Falklands interviews and why? Honestly, I tried to read the people who were talking's own books if I had them, and if not, I kept those books. I used Julian Thompson's books, I used Sandy Woodward's books, I used Michael Clapp, Ewan Selby Taylor's books. I used all those to try and sort of build it up as well as I could. Dan Freeman, for kinetic game guns, there are rumors about room temperature superconductors, which would make them viable if the rumors are based in truth. Yeah, it's possible. Shomak, if you harden them against EM frying, how dangerous will they get? Even if you hit a ship with enough kinetic energy and you rip a hole through it lets in water, that's the point. To sink a ship, you need to make a hole which lets in water, Golden Eagle. And if that's the case, if you manage to do that with a railgun, that's great. If you don't do that with a railgun, so the idea is, are you doing that, or are you doing that through the ship? If you're not at short range, you're probably going to be doing some version of a ballistic arch, which is going to come in, come down, and go boom. And if you're attacking land targets, that's going to be even more fun with the kinetic energy. It's going to force you to design things. Paul Ketchum, I read an article recently by a retired US Admiral about putting escort carriers in service, i.e. converted tankers, to supplement LHDs in the F-35 light carrier role. How practical is that? Well, if you have the money, you can do it. If you have the money, you can do it. I'm not sure I would use tankers. I'd probably use container ships, because they're huge open spaces, and I can adapt them slightly easier. I'd have to rebuild their superstructure, but I'd have to rebuild the superstructure on a tanker ship as well. And honestly, container ship, yeah, it's huge open spaces, so I can basically take out all the containers and I can use it to build up my things, my layers, my flight deck, my maintenance facilities, all those things. So I'd basically put in hangar and all those facilities lower level, and all maintenance facilities. Then I'd have the hangar level, then I'd have the flight deck, and I'd build up in a container ship. Far easier than a tanker. Tanker you'd have to do a lot of work on. Use tankers in World War II because they were the ones which were available, but nowadays we've got container ships. Might as well use them. Right then. Lots of debate going on about rail guns versus coil guns and all these things. Look, the answer I would give is most of it is theoretical until we actually see one in service. And the thing is, we have seen test examples from both sides. We haven't seen anyone practically implemented yet. When we see one practically implemented, then we'll start having an idea about it. Until then, it's a theoretical thing. I think it's a theoretical thing which is viable. And as I said, my strong suspicion is by the time you get the Type 48s, it will be in service. I'm calling them Type 45, 48s, the daring class successors. Have I watched Greyhound yet? No, I haven't, Jerison. Honestly, I haven't watched any television about the last couple of weeks. I've got a list a mile long of stuff I'd like to watch. All projectile weapons are about converting energy from one sort to another. A normal gun converts chemical energy into heat. Sound. Gas rifle turns electrical energy into projectile moving. Yep. The chat on History YouTube video has now moved to sci-fi future stuff, and Dr. Clark is running out of Iron Brew. Methinks this is coming to a natural end. I think so. That is my distinct feeling. So I'm saying I think about 9 o'clock. So about 3 minutes. Let's see what questions there are coming through. Jerison, Dr. Clark, you need to watch Greyhound. There's a tribal in it, albeit it's called HMS James. I will watch it. Seth Thompson, hope you enjoyed the Black Sails clip I showed you in the Discord. Haven't seen it yet. I've been it's going to sound strange. I've been having a bit of a weird day. Lots and lots of random work popping up. I'm editing a lot of videos because I had a lot of housework going on Friday with lots of building work. So that meant we got bilge pumps recorded, but by the time bilge pumps was finished recording, there was non-stop banging and crashing for the rest of the day. So that meant recording for I moved recording with Daniel was done on Saturday, and I spent the morning mostly editing and prepping for Tuesday's presentation, but also editing those videos, which are for the following Mondays, which are on Singtown 1939. So they're all now edited, and we'll be doing the next ones on Wednesday. So it's going to be pretty cool. Vision. Okay, add more PDC for the Space Reserve for... That was the fun point. Actually, having all the editing is cool, and I'm going to be doing it, putting together with a proper background, with a couple of slides I did in. It's going to be cool. Pictures of various things we're talking about. Sorry, we got to all the books that I had with me today. I have to admit, I only had 8 because I said 4 didn't arrive. They're supposed to come from Amazon. They haven't arrived. So they will probably go into one of the 4 books, which are going to be the backup ones for if I'm away on a Sunday. As I said, I am going to be away definitely one Sunday in September is my intention, because I'm planning to be seeing my girlfriend for her birthday, and it's one of the Sundays in September. So I've preparing a couple of 4-book episodes, which are basically me talking about 4 books, and they're pre-recorded ones. So whilst it's not going to be the same live, there will be something for you all to watch, because I don't want to leave you all with nothing on your Sunday afternoons after I've been here for the last few months and been keeping you company. I don't want to let you down. So that's going to be coming. Go on, Eagle. Which World War II admirals would you name warships after? Vian, Fraser, Cunningham. I'd probably be nice and even name one after Somerville if I was being particularly nice. There's a few. There's a few good ones. Harwood, definitely. Guess one. Kingsrook. So we'll be seeing Admirals and Engineers episode for other navies. I'm hoping for RCN one. There are going to be more of those at some point coming up. Thank you very much, everyone. 900. Found a compilation of Tug series in one video and another playlist of episodes. Would you like me to link when the stream ends in the comments? Yes, please. No Dudley Pound? We know how you feel about Mountbatten. Pound, I'll be nice. I'll let him have a ship, but Mountbatten, no. Mountbatten over my... Dr. Clark, very few British monarchs get ships named after them. Enough to. Queen Elizabeth gets one quite regularly. The first, that is. Right. Take care, everyone. I'm going off to walk the fluffy research assistant. So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you to everyone who's a patron. Thank you to everyone who's on Discord. It's very nice having you all. As you know, currently technically unemployed, so the lovely joy that is the patron fund is what pays for my books at the moment. So thank you very much to everyone, and thank you. Have a nice evening, and thank you for being here. Thank you. Night Night Daniel, Night Night Kingsrook, Night Night Golden Eagle, Jay Richardson, Night Heron Production, Bijon, Jack Ray, Sean Mack, Night Night Everett, Night Night Bandholm, Albert Sasky, Night Night Yickers, Night Night Carl, and Night Night Greg. There's a bolt carrier named Lord Mountbatten. That's my first target if ever I get control of anti-ship missiles. Take care, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Ruff! Sorry. Wolfing back to my own dog. Take care, everyone. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Thank you.